I want the fan. Do you want the fan? No. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe, for being here. Thank you, Dennis, for bringing him.
My pleasure.
And he's gonna stay with Stella this evening, and John's returning him to Santa Fe tomorrow. We have no one signed up for next week. I'm looking at you. But we have no one signed up for any of the travel or for housing next week. So I'm gonna pass this around and hopefully somebody can fill in, and I will also pass around the prayer list for people with obstacles and sickness, etc. Okay. Pass that to you. And Mary, thank you for being our Zoom mistress.
I think she heard, yeah. So good evening, everyone. Again, wonderful, lovely to see. And again, we will start as usual to quiet our mind by watching our breath mindfully for a few moments. So just make yourself relaxed, comfortable. And feel the weight of your body on the chair. And keep your mind to the breath. As you breathe in and out naturally, normally. Observe it mindfully, be aware. Then we can try to have a good intention motivations. For example, life in samsara is not so easy. Full of challenge. Difficulties, problems. And all of those are challenges, difficult problems, sufferings. They're all a manifestation or result of our own previous actions and our own mind, affective emotions. Therefore, if you want to end all problems, suffering, pain, not just temporarily, but completely, permanently, then we have to identify and recognize the cause of those and then try to get rid of all the cause that lead to such experiences. And that means purifying all the previous negative karma, stopping creating new negative karma, and minimizing the afflictive emotions, those negative emotions, and eventually to get rid of them completely. And to do that, we need to cultivate the wisdom that can act antidotes to those afflictive emotions. As well as trying to cultivate love, compassion, bodhicitta mind as much as possible. And to do that, we need to meditate, contemplate, and practice. In order to meditate, contemplate, and practice, we need to be reminded of the practice all the time. And for that, we have to learn how to meditate, contemplate. That's why we are here. And may we be able to implement as much as possible whatever we study and learn into our everyday life, everyday experiences. So we have less disturbing negative emotions arising. Even if it does arise sometime, to be able to let it go quickly and not hold on them. And may us here coming together to listen, to reflect, contemplate, to get in discussions. May all of this become cause and conditions to achieve our highest potential, fully awakened state. So we can be most help and benefit to others and oneself. Okay.
Okay, and our prayer books. We'll do in the opening prayer, we'll do the praise to Shakyamuni Buddha 3 times in English. To the founder, the endowed, the destroyer, the Lord and beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, supreme God of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, for you, the complete and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the supreme from the Shakya plane. I prostrate, make offerings, and go to refuge. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one born beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the real from Shakya clan. I prostrate and make offerings to the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one God beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the complete and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan. I prostrate, make offerings, and go to refuge. We'll do the short mandala offering in English. This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, and adorned with mountain air, for continents sit down in the pathway. That one living beings enjoy this pure land. And taking a refuge in generating bodhicitta, we'll do once in English and twice in Tibetan. I go for refuge until I am enlightened. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit others. Your Lord vengeance on your do show. So in this new series, we have been discussing about the Four Noble Truths and the truth of suffering, and the truth of the origin or the cause, and the truth of the cessation and truth of the path. And within that, we are in a kind of truth of the origin or the cause. And we discuss about
how with the first, how ordinary samsaric life experience is in the nature of sufferings. That's the way the samsaric ordinary life is. The nature is suffering. That's the way things are. If we understand and we accept that, I think that few things, we can take the pain and some suffering with much more ease. Sometimes we feel like, why is it happening to me? It shouldn't happen to me or my friends or my family. Why is this happening to me? We always feel, but that's the way it is. It's samsara. Life is, that's the way it is. It's not something happening to you that, or to us, that shouldn't be happening. The nature of that is, it is just like that. What can you expect from the fire? Heat, the burning heat, because that is the nature of the fire. In summer, it rains. What can you expect? That is what summer monsoon means when it's raining. That's the nature of that. Same samsaric ordinary life, it is like that. And if we learn that is the nature and accept it, I think it's less painful. It's less painful. When you don't accept it and feel like that shouldn't be happening, but it's happening, then it's much more painful and it's much more difficult to deal with that. And if we look around, that's, we are not only one dealing with that. Everyone is dealing more or less same. Sometimes it feels like we are going through much more because we know ourselves so well. All the pain, all the suffering that we go through, we experience ourselves. With other people, we don't experience their pain because everyone is trying to hide their pain. So sometimes it looks like others are not having any problem, suffering, seems to have a great life. And it is me, my family, that is having all the problems, all the sufferings. But if we look really deep, everyone is more or less going through it. From other side, who doesn't know you, they might feel, oh, you are so happy. You don't have any problem, you don't have any suffering. But if we go deeper level, then everyone is experiencing more or less very similar situation in their life. Everyone's some sort of life. And so, I think understanding that, recognizing and understanding that, and I think make it, and accepting that to a certain degree, make it much more easy and less painful. And secondly, if we do not want that suffering, that pain, then it's not enough that I don't want that suffering or that pain. If we don't want that pain and suffering, then we have to get rid of the cause and condition that lead to that suffering or future sufferings. If we don't do anything about trying to get rid of the cause and condition that lead to that pain, that suffering, that problem, then just not wanting to have that suffering doesn't change. And so therefore, that is why we are, the truth of the origin of the cause of such samsara, cause of the sufferings. And so I think we kind of touched a little bit as last week, the cause of the suffering, the main cause, the root cause is the karmic potential and the delusions or the afflictive emotions. And within that, and then we talk about the delusion being the main, because the reason we engage into such negative actions or karma, unwholesome actions, because it's motivated by one of those afflicted emotions. So when it comes to the karma, we try to not to create any more new karma as much as possible, new negative karma, karma as much as possible to the body, speech, and mind, with being more mindful with our thoughts, being more mindful of our speech, being more mindful of our actions, physical actions, and through that being more mindful, we try to have more positive thoughts, engage in a more helpful, beneficial speech and actions, and we try to have less of those, harmful, negative thoughts, speech, and actions. Engage in that. Try to have less of that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we try to create less of those negative karma. And if we can create less negative karma, then there's less potential to experience suffering and pain and problem in the futures. And if we can stop completely from creating any negative karma, then then we stop creating any new cause and condition for future sufferings, problem sufferings. And so that is what throughout our life we try to do. But what about the previous negative karma that we have already created? And then from Buddhist point of view, the Buddha explained those can be purified. The good is that it can be purified. It can be purified. And there are different purification practices one can engage into, and also engage in more virtues. There's always negative energy forces, and the more you create virtues, you increase more positive energy forces. And when positive energy forces more stronger, it overwhelms the negative energy forces. And through that, then it doesn't allow the negative energy forces to give produce the result. It's just like if you see in the world outside in the plant, when one plant becomes more powerful, stronger, then it takes all the energies and it kind of slowly kill the other plant. That is how they survive. They're competing with each other for the rain, for the water, for the fertilizers, and whichever plant become more stronger, then it take all the energy, all the resource, and then the other one get less, and then slowly the other one die, because not being able to get. That seems to be, if you watch in the forest among the different trees, competing with each other, the plant, that's same. That's how it is, even in the negative energy forces, the negative karma, and positive energy force and positive karma, they also compete with each other. And when we increase that positive karma, the virtues more and more, then it becomes more stronger and stronger. And so it overwhelms the others, so it doesn't give the others any opportunity to produce its result. In that way, that is how we can, again, and so creating more virtues, engaging more virtues, creating more positive karma. That is way to go about it, dealing with the negative karma that we have already created, and which we have the potential still there, and which the potential hasn't manifested, but there's potential to manifest in the future. So through that engagement so much virtue, it doesn't give so much opportunity for the negative karma to produce the result. And also, I said there are many different practice to clear and purify the negative karma which we have already created. But it's very hard not to create negative karma when you have the delusions. It's very hard not to create a negative karma when you have the delusions. Even if you don't want to engage in any harmful, unwholesome physical actions or reactions or speech or thought, when the delusions arises due to coming in contact with different causes and conditions, then sometimes we cannot stop. We cannot stop having a negative thought because of anger. For example, anger arises. In that moment, anger is hard to stop being negative. Negative thought just arises because of that anger. Sometimes it's hard to stop from using a harsh speech in that moment. It becomes hard, sometimes not easy and hard, unless you have strong practice and tools. Easy and not hard to not to show, physical expressions of that harmful, negative physical expression or aggression of that. So even we don't want, but when negative emotion arises, then it's hard not to create a negative karma. Therefore, while we try to purify the negative karma, but we have focused more on trying to minimize and reduce and that affected emotion, the negative karma. That should be the main focus. And all the Buddha's teachings that he gave, all the practice teaching that he gave, that is followed by different lineage, different traditions, all those different practice teaching, they all are for one purpose. For one purpose is to minimize and destroy those afflicted emotions. All these teachings, all the different teachings, all the different practice that the Buddha gave is all to deal with our afflicted emotions. Through such practice, meditation, how can we reduce, how can we minimize, and how can we eliminate and destroy those afflicted emotions? If there's no more afflicted emotion, there's no more karma to create it. If no more negative karma, there's no more contaminated karma to be created. Because there is no the motivating factors that make us to create the karma. Whether it's negative karma or contaminated karma. And so therefore, Therefore, the focus should be working with our mind to reduce those negative, those distractive, disturbing negative emotions. And as we mentioned last week in the sutras, or the Four Noble Truths, it talk about, the craving, the attachment being one of the main, when you have the attachment, then many other delusion arises. A lot of time, if we watch, jealousies come because of the attachments. You are jealous with someone, envy with someone, because you are attached to something which they have. Jealousy comes from that. A lot of time, if you watch anger, where does anger arise from? It comes from attachments. We're attached to certain things, whatever external, internal. And when we feel someone's creating obstacle for that, to achieve that, we become upset and angry with them. When we feel that they are destroying the object of our attachments, when we feel that they are the obstacles to achieve the object of our attachments, when we feel they are the competition for our to achieve our object of our attachments, that's when we started to feel negative about them. Started to feel negative about them. That gives rise to anger. Check it, a lot of time when we're upset and angry, where does that come? If you go further, a lot of time is the attachments. Greediness comes from attachment. Miserliness comes from attachments. All those different, disturbing negative. So it's the attachment that, in terms of the experience, attachment to pleasant feelings, happiness or pleasant feelings, attachment to be separate from unpleasant feelings, and so forth. Attachment to our experience, attachment to our body, attachment to ourself, attachment to our family, attachment to our friends, attachment to our ideas, attachment to the ideas, even in the spiritual path, being attached to the spiritual path, that itself is a problem when you become attached to that. Attachment to the goal, the goal that you want to achieve. A lot of time we're very attached to the outcome, the goal. The outcome, the goal. So that, then, attachment to people liking us, praising us, loving us, attachment to, physical, material things, objects, material things, attachment to reputation, fame, attachment to praise, people talking nice about you, good about you, all of that, so we have so much attachment, so due to those, because of all these attachments, then, we suffer a lot. We suffer a lot because of those attachments. When we are strongly attached to that, the first, the sense of worry, fear, whether I will be able to achieve that or not. The object of your attachments, whether I will get it or not, whether I will be able to achieve that or not, whether I will be able to have that or not. Wary, suspicious to others because you are worried and suspicious that someone will take it away. Someone might get instead of you, or you might not get, someone might get it, And then, of course, in order to get it, then, we engage in the action to make it happen, so we can get the objects of our attachments, a lot of effort, sometimes going through a lot of hardship, suffering to get it, If we don't get it, sometimes we get devastated, depending on how strongly attached you are. The more stronger attachment is more stronger devastation when you don't get it. Less attachment you are, less devastating it is, even if you don't get it. And that is why that sometimes people, when they're so attached to a certain outcome, they're so attached to that outcome, and they're driven so strongly with that attachment to that outcome. And when that doesn't happen, they feel like they're failure. They are good for nothing. Do you get it? Even though maybe they are good at so many other things, even though they are not failure, even though they have so many others, what you call positive qualities and skills and great, but because you are so attached to that particular one outcome, that you're so attached, and when you are unable to achieve that, then you feel like you're completely failure, completely good for nothing, useless, meaningless. You even started thinking you have no meaning in your life. Sometimes people take their life because they think that there's no more meaning in their life. Why? Because something they were so attached to, something they desperately wanted that, and they put so much effort and they didn't get that. And then they felt like they're totally failure. That comes from attachment, so strongly attached to the outcome, and that is what happens. More stronger attachment, more devastating it is. Less attachment, less devastating it is, even if you cannot achieve it. And even we are able to achieve, the object of attachment, suffering doesn't stop there. Now you have achieved it. Now you have the suffering that you have suffered. Can I be able to hold on that? Now it is about maintaining that. There's a suffering of losing it, separating it, Whether it is in a relationship, whether it is any external object, house, anything. You worry about the house. Before, you worry whether you can be able to buy a house, afford a house. Now you are able to buy, afford, and have a house. Now it's different worried. Maybe it might broke, maybe there's one problem, and maybe the problem doesn't stop there. The suffering, your mind from being worrying doesn't stop there. Even you are able to get what you wanted, the worry doesn't stop there. When we have all this attachment, clinging, grasping to that, the fear, the worry continue, and through that we suffer. And because as long as it's attachment, even you have got what you want, still you are not satisfied. Your mind is not fully satisfied. As long as we follow the attachment, as long as we follow the attachment, that attachment can never lead you to a satisfactions. As long as we're attachment, if we have one, we want two. If we have two, we want four. You want better, more. No matter how much you have, you still want more. You still want better. Always never been satisfied. Therefore, like Buddha said in Sutta, he gave the example of the attachment to like drinking a salted water. By drinking salted water, you can never feel fulfill your cons. You want more and more water. You drink more salted water, you feel like you wanted more salted water. And it never ends. There's no end to the greediness. There's no end to the greediness attachment. The greediness attachment can never lead to real sense of content, satisfactions. Such is. So you can see how attachment is the source of suffering in our life. Even we don't talk from karmic point of view, okay? Even we don't talk from karmic point of view, just having that strong attachments, that strong craving in our now, that is creating a lot of pain, sufferings in our life. Less attachment, less worry, less suffering, less pain. More attachment, more pain, more worry, more sufferings. And a lot of the conflict, many of conflict, in the world due to different religious or different spiritual path. Why there's conflict? There shouldn't be any conflict, but there is, people fight, sometimes even kill, because they're attached to their spiritual path, their religions. That's why. If you're not attached to that, you're not attached to your path, your spiritual path, your religious, whatever we call it, if you're not attached to that, if someone doesn't agree with that path, if someone criticizes that path because it's not, you wouldn't be so upset and angry and have that kind of conflict. But when you are so attached to that, then you cannot stand someone criticizing that. Or someone, disagreeing, not only disagreeing, sometimes being criticizing and saying nasty or bad things about your religion, your spiritual path, then because of that attachment, that then your mind gets disturbed by that, someone saying that or acting that way. And when your mind is disturbed, then that is when you become aggressive. And then when the conflict comes, again, is, attachment to the view, attachment to, and sometimes it doesn't just have to be a religious as attachment of view, could anything. Political views, for example. we can have different political views. And when you are attached to one particular political view, when other side criticize you, you cannot handle it. You become agitated, upset, angry. If you are not so attached to it, even someone has a different view, even they criticize that view, you can let it go. You can let it go without being agitated and angry and upset. You can just know, oh, this is their view, is not my view. I have a different view. That's their view. So you can just kind of let it go. But when you are very attached to that, then you become very possessive. Then you try to defend that. And you get agitated, upset, and you try to defend it. And not only defend it, then you become offensive towards the others, aggressive towards the others. So that is when we're attached to any kind of view. It could be political view, it can be spiritual view, it could be different views in anything. That is how the attachment, creates so much pain, suffering in yourself, and that lead to you also to engage in a conflict, aggressions towards others as well. So it becomes cause of yours. So that is why, attachments. And such attachments, comes through the ignorance, arise from the ignorance, fundamental ignorance. Ignorance of the nature of yourself, ignorance of nature of the objects of the attachments, ignorance about the attachment itself. And so that is due to that ignorance. Due to ignorance of, yourself, even though your nature of yourself is impermanent, dependent arisings. But due to ignorance that, we cling and grasp to be permanent, clings and grasp to have that inherent existent self. And due to that grasping and clinging of inherent existent self, then due to that grasping and clinging, then we get attached to the self. And when we get attached to the self, then, when we feel, that someone is creating some kind of obstacles, some kind of harm towards us, then we get upset, agitated, angry, and so forth. Also, we become self-possessive due to that attachment. Due to that attachment, we feel like we have to be the center of the world. And everyone has to treat me like I'm the center of the world. If someone doesn't treat me, I'm the center of the world. Instead, I'm the outside of the world, I feel offended. Feel like I'm not respected. Feel like I'm not treated well. On the other hand, if they treat me like I'm the center of the world, then you feel like you are respected. You are treated well. So that is what, due to that, then we feel like, you need to be the center. And you are not center of the world, and not everyone is going to treat you like you are the center of the world. And then we get hurt, feeling like we are not treated well, not respected well, and all kind of those feeling arises, and those feelings give rise to a negative feeling towards others, disturb our mind, disturb our mind, disturb our peace, and then not only that, then it give rise to negative feeling towards the others. So that is because of that ignorance. Because with that ignorance, there's that grasping, because you feel there is a self that exists from its own side there inherently, because we cannot see the non-inherent existing of self, because we cannot see there is no self that exists from its own side. Instead, we see and cling to exist inherently from its own side, and that lead to that clinging, grasping, and attachment, and so forth. Same with all the object of our attachments, or object of our aversion, anger. When I see the object of attachment, whatever that it is, internal or external objects, you feel that objects, you are attached to that because you see something positive quality in that, or you feel or see something positive quality in that. That's why you are attached to that. If you have aversion, disliking towards something because you see or you feel there's something negative quality in that, some negative quality in that object that make you to have that kind of aversions, disliking. The reason why you dislike something or someone or something, any objects, external or internal objects, the reason you dislike, the reason you have aversion, is because you see or you feel some kind of negative qualities in that. That's why, the quality that you don't like, something quality, some kind of qualities, some kind of negative quality that you don't like or you don't approve, whatever, and you see that in that object. And on the attachment is the opposite. On the attachment, you see it or you feel something positive in that, certain quality, positive quality. That's why we're attached. That's why we're drawn towards that by that attachment. So when we see whatever positive qualities in that object, not only we see positive quality in that object, but we see and feel there is a positive quality in that object from its own side, objectively there. Do you get it? Whatever that is, and therefore that's why I feel I need to get that one. I need that object. I must have that object, or I want that object. I need that object, because we feel the something positive quality that we see in which we want. We see that positive quality in that object itself from its own side there. So in a way, then we see the object of the attachment existing inherently, and we see and the object to exist from its own side instead of, seeing, So due to that ignorance, instead of seeing that there is no the positive quality that we see in that object that we're attached to, there's nothing positive quality from its own side objectively or inherently. If we see that, then you will be less attached to that object. if you see that, then you will feel less stronger needs and want of that object. So that attachment coming from that fundamental ignorance of not understanding or realizing the true nature of that object. It's like I'm hallucinated, then even though there's no one there, I see someone there. Not only I see someone there, now because I see someone there, now I see someone trying to hurt me. So sometimes some people have certain illness and they feel that way, due to certain illness. And sometimes due to other conditions. Even though there's no one trying to hurt them, but in their mind, they're so real, that is so real, so real that they feel like even you try to explain them, there's no real person, there's no real someone to hurt you. It's hard them to believe that because to them that is so real. Similarly, that is due to our, imprint and the ignorance. That's how we feel the object really being there. The object really being there from its own side. And then not only the object really being there, there's a real positive quality from its own side, from that objective side. And we believe that. And then on the basis of that, then that's where the attachment comes. Clinging, grasping towards that, and attachment comes. And then so it's again as the Buddha says, Nagarjuna says, and all other masters, if the positive quality that we see in there that we're attached to, if it exists as a positive quality from its own side, then everyone has to be able to see it as positive qualities. But that is not the case. For someone, it might look like positive qualities. For someone, they might feel is a non-positive quality. For someone, it might look more neutral qualities, neither positive, neither negative. Just like any objects, when you see beauty or attractive, any objects, it all depends on people's mind and perceptions. What is attractive? What is the beauty? It changes according to different cultures. If you, let's say, take a beauty of human beings, or the attractive of beauty, different cultures have different way of looking at what the beautiness is, what the attractiveness is. In certain culture, certain community, round face is beautiful. Certain culture, certain society, round face is not beautiful. It's a long face is the beautiful. Certain culture, certain individuals, not only culture, but also certain individuals. Complex, even complex. For some, white is very attractive beauty. For some, black is beauty and attractive. For some, brown is more attractive than beauty. In terms of complex, in terms of the shape, whether it's a human being or whether it's another external other objects, non-beings. What is attractive? What is the beautiness? It all depends on perceptions, mind, that might be influenced by the culture, influenced by the society, the culture they live in, influenced by other things, many other things, depend on that. So in certain culture, in certain society, that definition of beautiness, in other culture, in other society, it could be the opposite. It's the definitions of non-beautiness. Unattractiveness. Of course, we are not only just talking from society, even individual, even in the same society, even same culture, same society, different people have different way of looking at things, what is attractive, what is beautiful. So that clearly shows the beautiness, the attractiveness that's not coming from the objective side. It's coming from the beings, the persons or the beings who perceive that due to their different perception, due to their different way of interpretation, due to their different thoughts, different mind. It's quite clear. Even that could change from even within the society or culture, or even within one person, their perspective can change, in certain cultures, in certain generations, being skinny is unattractive, unbeauty. Being a little bit chubby is a sign of good beautiness. You look for that kind of people who are a little bit chubby. But now, even in those cultures and society change, influenced by other cultures and others, different things. Now they might not see that way. So again, it's changing. What is beautiness? What is attractiveness? Also change even with one person, or in same culture, society, in generations, or whatever, even one person, they could change their, within their lifetime, When they are younger, they might have different definitions of what is attractive, what is beautiness. As they grow older, they might, the perspective that might change. So this is a very, very clear science. It's a clear, if we analyze that way, the attractiveness, the beautiness, the positive qualities that we're attached to, which we feel is positive, all of them, the beautiness, the attractiveness qualities, the positive quality do not come from the objective, from the object side, objectively, from its own side. When we analyze, I think we all more or less agree, isn't it? Understand that. But how does we act everyday actions, interactions? When I see something beautiful or attractive, some positive, in that moment, I cannot see it's coming from my perception, my mind. To me, in that moment, I feel like there's something beauty in it, there's attractive in it, there's positive quality from that object. And therefore, I feel like I need to get that object. I want that object. I'm attracted to that object. And so we are very attached to that object. Because in that moment, we can see that way, because of our ignorance, ignorance. And so therefore, that is why intellectual understanding doesn't destroy your ignorance. Intellectual understanding, because we have intellectual understanding, because when we discuss here, we all kind of seem to agree with that, accept that, because we all intellectually understand that. But on experiential level, we don't feel that way. So we have to go beyond just intellectual understanding. It's the beginning. First, you need to But we have to go beyond intellectual understanding and to have experiential understanding of that. And that is where the meditation, contemplation, practice come into the role. The role of meditation, contemplation, practice is to connect the intellectual understanding to the experiential understanding. That's the bridge. At the moment there is a gap. There's a gap. And so that is where, so I think maybe we will have a short break. Maybe 10 minutes break. And,
Geshe, I have a question.
yes.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So you were talking about the purification practices at the beginning. And like how confident can we be that something has really been purified? Or should we just assume that it has and not worry about it? Like, should we keep trying to purify? Like, let's say we have one thing that we really want to get purified and it's really bothering us.
Mm-hmm.
Do we keep trying to purify, or do we just assume that it's been purified and not worry about it?
Uh-huh. Of course, when we do the purifications practice, one of the important factors also in that practice is that you imagine or assume or confidently that it has been purified. That is a very important part of the purifications, that not having any doubt, not having any doubt that it has not been purified. So that is part of the practice, so you need to have that strong confidence or the belief. But also, how strong or effective our purification become on many factors. As I mentioned before, how strong your opening powers are, how sincerely those opening powers are, how strong your refuge is, how strong your bodhicitta is. Refuge and bodhicitta is opening power, the lines or the objects. The more stronger that is, the stronger your purification become. If your bodhicitta and refuge is not strong, then it still works, but it doesn't become as effective, as powerful. It's same with the regret, resolutions, and then in terms of the power of the antidote, whatever virtuous practice you are doing, how strong that is, so it depends on all these factors, If all these factors sincerely are very strong, then it becomes very powerful. It can purify completely. If any of them or some of them are not so strong or powerful, it still works, but it doesn't purify completely. It makes it less. It reduces the power of that. If it's 100 power, now it is reduced to 80 power or 50 power, 60 power. It is not completely gone, but it's less powerful than that. So it depends on many factors. So we try to, and even if, let's say, even we take, because it will be very hard for us to really know whether it has been purified or not, unless someone has, psychic power to see, some kind of clairvoyance. Maybe they might be able to see some part of that, where they purify how much has purified all of that. And otherwise, even though they are like, in the scriptures teaching, they talk about certain signs that you might have of being purified. But even with that sign, I don't know whether you can take for sure, that they had completely purified. So therefore, we continue to do purifications. And even everything has been purified in the past, as long as the delusion I spoke last time, we continue to create new all the time until we have no more delusions. When you have no more delusions, then maybe once it has been purified, then we don't have to think about it. But as long as there was delusion, even we have purified it, we continue to create new every day. And so therefore we continue to do the purification. So therefore, until we are free from all the delusions, we need the purification all the time. Yes, please.
Okay, so we're rolling around the universe and we put together out of our own mind an object and we assign qualities to that object, which makes it beautiful and desirable. This all comes from us. So we assign those qualities and then we begin to grasp. We try to control that object for ourselves. What I want to know is, what is the premise? What is the first motivation before we go out and create an object to have attachment and all of the problems that come with that?
Well, there's the ignorant, the imprint from the past. So there's the objects, the external object or internal objects. And then due to the ignorance, and then that triggers something, and then we started to project or have the perceptions. So through that, that's what, but is that the question or what?
Question was probably very badly formed. Like before you see this object, and again, it's a pure projection, there is no object there. I'm conceptualizing an object and I have made it beautiful by assigning qualities. Things that I like are assigned to that object. And then I become attached to that object, grasp and all that kind of stuff. What I want to know is, who is this that is inclined toward objects? I mean, where's that first move come from? Imprint from past lives and having objects in past lives. It's not trying to find happiness.
Which one?
The object, I'm trying to understand why I am creating this object. Is it so that it will make me happy? What is my premise? What is my is that any?
Yeah. Well, definitely it's coming from imprint. There's no doubt about that.
So for thousands of lifetimes, I've been involved with objects, and this just kind of surges into this lifetime until I find a way not to be captivated.
Yeah, as long as we're the imprint, that will activate our ignorance. And as long as we're that ignorant, when you come into contact with any object, external, internal object, we will start to cling and grasp that way and project things into the objects.
Can you talk a little bit more about, attachment, I think, is easy to grasp, because, there's an object and whatnot. Aversion is more difficult for me. I experience aversion. I don't want this person to be in my environment right now. I don't want to talk to them, whatever the situation, whatever the circumstance, I know there are thousands of things to experience aversion. to me, that's a little bit harder because it comes up faster. I can usually see an object and go, yeah, you know, but with aversion, there's not as much substance there. And there's just this feeling, you know, like sometimes I come into contact with a person, I don't know who they are, probably some karmic thing, you know, somewhere along the line. And I immediately am not fond of them, don't want to be around them. So that to me is somewhat, because it comes up so suddenly. That to me is I think somewhat harder to deal with. Not that the other is easy, but this just, you know, we talk about attachment a lot, but aversion is not something that.
Aversions, the anger, of course, aversion, anger or aversions, as you mentioned, you know, sometimes maybe we might not see any reason why we feel that way. Okay, as you mentioned, you meet someone, you never know, you just met for the first time, and you feel that way, you know, but sometimes on deeper level, when you see that, it triggers your mind something. And so maybe sometimes you have some issue with someone, and that person's behave like that person's, look like that person's. So we are not aware why it's triggered, but like something that is triggered because there's something that we have aversion, that we have some kind of feeling upset, angry with someone in the past because of their action, because of their behavior. And so that person kind of, we don't know, but it triggered them, you know, kind of on unconscious level, if you can say, trigger that memory or something that it reminds of that person's or that person's attitude or that person's behavior or something. And sometimes that might be the case, you know. And sometimes maybe it might be triggered from past karma too, you know, not necessarily in this lifetime, but because of the previous things. And when two energy come together and trigger something to feel that way, it's kind of carrying the karma from the past and then coming in that contact with that object kind of trigger that emotion to arise. But in some cases, it could be like just being triggered because if you really think maybe that person's, maybe the, you know, attitude, the way the person does things, the way the person look, might be something that triggering something that we have some issue with, you know. Yeah. And yeah, I've heard like that, you know, because I've heard some people just have an issue with someone because they have conflict, but because someone has problem with their father or mothers or someone, and that person remind me of that. Because their actions, their attitude, or their behavior, whatever, is very, and so that trigger their old feelings, you know, and so it could be like that too, you know. Yes, please.
I understand how attachments can bring suffering, but it seems to me attachments is, well, we can't really survive without certain attachments. Like, for instance, say I wanted an apple and I was in an apple orchard and there was a tree right next to me. I'm not attached to getting an apple. There's no intent. There's no reason why I would climb the tree. So I won't get an apple, but I'm not attached to it. So I'm not unhappy, but you know, it doesn't feel like it's helping my survival.
No, I don't think so. Like there are medicine I eat because not even I'm disgusted with that medicine. Okay, I'm disgusted with the flavor, the taste. Some of the Tibetan medicine are very bitter, you know, because it's made of a lot of very bitter, very hard to chew. You know, there's a lot of works. You don't like it. There's no attachment. There is even like almost aversion to some degree, but I take it because I want to be healthy. I want to survive. I want to be healthy.
What, wanting to survive, that's an attachment.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily wanting to survive is not necessarily attachment. Wanting to eat is not necessarily attachment. You know, you can eat with attachment. You can eat without attachments. You know, you can survive, the wish to survive with attachment, or wish to survive to be benefit to others. That is not saying that is my motivation for me, but like the bodhisattvas, you know, for many, their reason to survive, their motivation to survive is not because they are attached to their life, but because of wanting to be benefit, and they could be benefit to others. Therefore, if they have healthy life, if they have longer life, they can serve, they can be benefit. So that is the factor, that is the motivating factor of them to have wanting to live healthy, wanting to have longer life, wanting to survive. So it doesn't have to be attachment, you know, it can be compassion too, you know, for that. So it doesn't always have to be the attachment. But for a lot of for most ordinary people, then it is attachment. You know, the wish to survive, it might be attachment. Wanting to eat is could be driven by attachments. Wanting to have good health could be attachment, but that doesn't have to be. That is what I'm saying. You know, it could be driven by other mental factors or mental states. Yes, please.
I'm wondering, knowing how you live and learning a little bit about you, that you don't suffer a lot of attachment to objects. But I'm wondering, and I sometimes have to deal with this thought, how one deals with attachment to non-attachment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Attachment to non-attachment is better than attachment to the attachment. Mm-hmm.
I guess the middle path might be this way.
But in long term, even we have to not have attachment and non-attachment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that will be, you know, normally I say, you know, being attached to, let's say, a substance, alcohol, drug, or being attached to aversion to that. Both of them attachment, but attachment to aversion, that is better, you know, to that same, you know.
Do you ever have to deal with that in your meditation?
No, because I'm so attached. I'm so attached to attachment, so I don't have to deal with the attachment and non-attachment. So my problem is the other problem, you know. So my problem is because I'm so attached to the attachment itself. So that is the problem. So I don't have a problem with the attachments, the non-attachment. So unfortunately, but definitely, you know, we can get attached to our spiritual path. We can get attached to the goal of our spiritual path. You know, we can get attached to our practice. We can get attached to our meditations. We can get attached to, as you said, the wisdom. We can get attached to the non-attachment itself, all of that. Some of them, maybe at the very beginning, it is helpful to drive you in certain directions. But with the time, then we also need to let it go, you know.
It seemed like if I think, well, my thoughts are just empty anyway. So there's really no substance to that attachment, a kind of attachment or non-attachment. really not real, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have any atoms to it. It's just a thought, it's empty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you can think that way, you know, you can think attachment, aversion, whatever that, you know, they all are kind of, you know, coming from the mind and dissolving the mind. It's a display of the mind. There's nothing real is, you know, the waves comes and goes, but it's the water itself, you know, and so not getting hold to the waves itself. It's just natural water, whether it's the waves, whether it's the So again, trying to look from that perspective, or trying to see the attachment, as you mentioned, you know, that attachment itself, whether it's attachment or non-attachment, that attachment itself is empty or inherent existence, you know. There's no inherent existence of that object, the attachment itself, you know, the looking at the nature of that attachment itself, you know, not only the object of the attachment, but looking into the nature of that attachment itself. When you look into the object, the nature of the attachment itself, then the attachment also dissolves, you know. So not only the object of attachment, but sometimes we also look in the nature of the attachment itself, you know, the nature of that. And when you are able to see the nature of the attachment itself, also the attachment dissolves.
The emptiness nature of it.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, please.
So, a long time ago, I had a boyfriend who, called me up for a date and said he would be there at a certain time. And he came very late. And I was upset, and he said, "Don't be attached to that." What would you say?
Now to that answer, as Eloise showed the actions, it reminds me a story. I had a friend, a monk, and when he was still studying, and when he was younger, you know, so he had some little issue with temper, you know. He had little issue with temper. So I think it is the February 10th is a special day for the Tibetan. It's a uprising day. It's like in Tibet in 1949, when the Chinese came, there was uprising to asking them to go back. You know, so they in that day they will have some kind of, you know, demonstration, some protests, you know, like that every year. So also monastery, they also go and join that. And then my friend was getting ready to go, and then his roommate at that time told him, "Where are you going?" You know? And so he said, and then he said, "Why we need to do that? Why we need to go? You know, it's not important for us to do that." And then my friend told, you know, "Oh, you know, we have to remember the kindness of Tibetans, you know, because of the kindness of the Tibetan and His Holiness Lama Geshe and all of them. Then we got this education. We have all this opportunity to that. So therefore, we have to support them, because we have to keep the kindness of them and support them. That is a way of supporting them for their issues." And then, you know, the other friend, whether he was being kind of just being, you know, whether he was really thinking, or sometimes some people just want to,
Yes.
you know, put your burden, you know. So he said, you know, well, you know, like if the Lama Yeshe and Tibetans, and if they suffer, is their karma, you know, is their karma, you know. And so my friend got upset and he slapped him. He said, "This is your karma." And he slapped him, you know, and he said, "This is your karma." So,
But then he's making karma for himself too, right?
yeah. I mean, it is just that he lost temper, but the way he responds is, but what he says true, you just can't excuse a karma, and so he just make a point. I can say this is your karma, and I can slap you and say this is your karma, and it doesn't work that way, And so anyway, so that remind me of that story. But yeah, I don't know, how to respond to that, when you don't get attached to that, it depends on individual, for certain practitioners, they might appreciate that, that to remind them that, oh, he's reminding me of that, and I'm upset because I was attached, because I have certain expectations, because I wanted him to be at the right time, to be responsible and all of that. So there is that expectation, all of that. And because of that, that I got upset because when he didn't keep that responsibility. And so there's so for him to say that and appreciate that he reminds that and to work with ourselves. But that is not how everyone would feel that way, and because unless it's a really strong, good practitioner, then we feel the word not being kept, and making someone wait for so long time and so forth. And so, I don't know. I can't say what will be the answer. I think individual, different people will answer differently, and even if I ask Buddha, I don't know how he will, what he will say, how he will answer to that. Definitely, he will make sure that he is not upset and angry with that one. But in terms of what he will say, I don't know. Maybe sometimes he might not say anything. Not saying anything, noble silent. It will be maybe the best. And sometimes maybe with the best intention, reminding them, I can let it go, I can forgive, I'm okay now, but it shouldn't do that to next time, to me or anyone else. So that they're aware of that it affects someone. So maybe for some that might be help. For some, maybe just being silent is the best. So yeah. Yes.
There are some questions.
Okay, this will be okay.
Karen has a question, Geshe.
Okay.
Mary, why don't you take the slot since it's the last question? Didn't you have one?
No, I was just raising my hand for you.
Oh, okay. Well, I actually have a couple of them, so I'll try to cut them back. Thank you. It's a very interesting discussion on attachment. I don't understand where the concept of ambition fits in, because listening to everything, it sounds like it's not viewed in a very positive light. But it reminds me of a story of a monk that I knew who was absolutely determined to raise what at the time seemed an impossible amount of money to build a stupa in memory of one of his beloved teachers. And he was, I won't say obsessed with it, but fiercely determined to somehow over time get that thing built. And he did. It took a while, but he was completely focused on it. So, just like you make the distinctions between good and bad in other types of behavior, like regret, for example, is there such a thing as good and bad ambition?
No, ambitions is not necessarily bad. It could be attachment or it could be non-attachment. Someone might have attachment and clinging, grasping to their whatever they want to achieve. In these cases, building a stupa. They might be driven by a strong attachment to that project. It could be driven with strong attachment to their teacher or whoever in memory they are trying to build up. So it could be out of attachment, you know, to the teacher themselves. It could be attachment to the project itself. It could be attachment to yourself, that to show that you have done this and that, or it might not be any attachment, but it's just a ambitious that you wanted to do something good, positive, in memory of your teacher or your parent or whatever, whoever that is. So therefore, ambitious doesn't have to be attachment. So yeah, so
Okay, so if someone is behaving badly, I guess it's one of two things. Either you consider yourself the center of the universe and you're looking at it from that point of view, which is not good, or if you realize the true nature of the object or the situation, that still doesn't remove, though, the mental or physical hurt, does it?
no, if you really understand the true nature of the self or phenomena, you will not have that hurt feelings. For
Really?
Buddhas or the arhat, someone can criticize them, someone can try to physically hurt them. They don't have feeling of that hurt. They don't have that feeling of, they don't have that feelings, the hurt feelings. So because they don't have the delusions. So
when you were talking about the different types of perception around the world, are you familiar with Jungian archetypes or the work that Joseph Campbell did in the 20th century?
no, really.
Well, what it was about was, as the world opened up, you got all these anthropologists and archaeologists pretty much swarming all over the planet, and it became clear that.
Can you keep it short?
Yeah, sorry. Yes, I'll wrap it up. It became clear that there's a lot of commonalities between cultures globally. So, you'll see the same thing repeated. So there was a lot of work done on that, and they called them archetypes. So that seems to be diametrically opposed to the whole idea of there being perceptions varying in the mind. But we can talk about that some other time, because if you're not familiar with that kind of work, then it's not really a fair question. So I'm done.
Maybe we can do the dedications.
Yeah. So, on our dedication list for people suffering obstacles, we have Jessica, Moses H, Liam and sister, Juliana H, Ali P, Cordia S, Robin W, Rolf, Andrea, and the Moroccan victims. Those who are suffering illness, we have Rolf, Elena P, Hillary V, Gerard S, Rick M, John, Jim B, Hercine G, Terry Bird, Kelly Hanson, Linda W, Patty, Kathleen Rogers, Evan Martinez, and those who have recently died. We have Bill Richardson, Norm, the Libyan flood victims, and victims in Morocco. And we'll do the dedication prayers in English. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of the Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. Faces of free, little Bodhicitta, that are libraries of the bright world. And that which have risen not diminished, but increased more and more. And along my prayers for His Holiness, wish granting, wish fulfilling jewel, the source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. To the incomparably kind hymns and gospel I beseech. May all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. For Osalita, Venerable One, to you whose kindness exceeds that of all confidence, for those wondrous and marvelous places prepared by your best. Mindful of your loving concern for us, imitating things and again. Into the family of our distant living, we make your request. Oh, Mama, please leave it alone. And the prayer for the swift return of Lawrence over Rimshire. Here's teacher and the family of the children of the victorious women. Providence, with us. Victorious most of our comes. Along with the divinity ministers. All the objects of refuge of the infinite lands. Please bestow the worship of the accomplished in prayer here now. Holy and spirit in the precious and complete teaching. Through explanation and practice, you are the armor of patience that have never discouraged. Incomparable and worthy to you and your requests. While striving single mindedly for the sake of the declares one evening. The Lord gave pleasure of all benefit and happiness knowledge. And for one of the living days, to suddenly for peace, what I have lost. Nevertheless, to the other city, of the blessings of the other city. And the very words, Bodhicitta, children of your one. And the smile of the incarnation, living being and glory, Lord of the life.
Thank you very much. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.